is iRacing.
Well, let's get ourselves set in with what is some amazing racing action. We now head to a circuit where many will look around and say, right, I want to be out there, I want to battle, I want to go and say, hey, look, this is a day where I can stand on song. But this is also going to be a day for many where they thought, you know what, this might not be the race that I want to get into. This might not be the day where I want this chance to go out there, battle and go, hey, look, this is where I want my name in lights. But you never know who's going to turn up and race. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Racing Action for your IMSA Vintage series as we get ourselves ready for racing action here at the tail end of the championship. My name's Jake Sperry. Alongside for the ride is Craig King, as in the director's chair is Christian Deploy, using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But to the Adriatic coast, and what makes Misano or the World Circuit Marco Simoncelli so important in the world of motorsport. This is one of those tracks that's seen a lot of endurance and motorbikes, but let's see what it does old school motorsport style with your GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. With the track situated just a couple kilometers away from the Adriatic Sea, this beach town venue is nestled into one of the most beautiful settings. Here on iRacing, it comes with 5 layouts that range between only 6 turns over a single kilometer to the Grand Prix circuit, which covers over 4 kilometers and 16 turns. A plethora of open-wheel, GT, and touring car series visit to compete, but its real claim to fame has mainly been motorcycles. Regardless, it's well suited to 4 wheels and truly keeps drivers on their toes. The sweeping quattro invites drivers to try a pass, but it allows more speed through the corner than you'd anticipate. And Tramonto brings its own struggles. A kinked entry makes it difficult to nail, and yet the exit is perhaps more important. It leads you onto the incredibly long back portion of the track. I'd call it a straight, but you fly through Curvone and keep your foot down all the way through 12 until finally turn 13 scares you into slowing down. And you'll definitely want to, because the hairpin of Caro comes up fast. Having been around since the early 70s, the track has been reconfigured multiple times. In fact, it's even changed direction and gone from counterclockwise to its current clockwise configuration. Whether you're a beachgoer who needs their fix of speed or a race fan that wants a seaside vacation with their race day, Misano is a track that won't disappoint.
It's a circuit that says to some, I'd like to go and make this one of the best out there, right up upon the coast of the Adriatic. But as we set here, this track that opened in 1972, its current guise here, Craig, is one where there are a lot of corners where you can make passes, and you will have to in multi-class.
Yeah, and because this is one of these European FIM tracks, and Misano is mainly used for motorbikes, it actually opens up a little bit here for the multi-class aspect. Because there's a lot more runoff instead of being gravel, the drivers will take more risk when it comes to overtaking here, because they know the speed differences are such that they either lift when they get to a corner like turn 11 there or turn 13, or they can just use the extra runoff there, which will also produce some issues when it comes to possibly getting slowdown. So watch that for the GTPs. It's a flat track. It's rare you say this about a track in Europe, but not a lot, if any, elevation change here. So that really helps with these downforce cars. The GTOs, well, they're not going to enjoy it that much. It's tight, it's bendy, and there's a lot of corners that link into one another. And the last thing Audis like are corners that combo into each other. They're more of a combo breaker.
Yeah, and nobody wants to see them have to put another quarter in the machine, start again, and find their way up through with this running that we have. But we're going to get ourselves then a look at where the championships lie coming into today, because this has already been a super Saturday of championship winning, but there are no guarantees out there. While there is a Gabriel Martinez, there is no Jacob Reed, and so the points are going to be interesting once we talk about this one here, with drops being applied and the battle in the championship. It's Christophe Lenajak who finds himself third, with Alexia Lima fourth, and Laust Olsen in fifth position. It's then Yuko Leskala and Andres Felipe Diaz, with Emerson Godin in eighth, Andrew Blackman ninth, and a point behind that, Fabian Youngbluth making up the top 10 in the GTP standings. Craig, how about a little look over at GTO?
Yeah, GTO's just a little bit as also confusing, because Valenteus and Hagner got quite a close gap to one another, but Joni Hagner's not here today. He'll be taking his last drop. It will all come down to what he does next week. For Valenteus, he's already done 2 drops. So you look at the maths, you look at the numbers, this could be the day that Valenteus has his dance with destiny and history. Could be very interesting. He gets that behind Noah Lundberg and Cal Young, just 5 points separate them. Mickey Friesen in fifth. Emilio Dechari has steeled up the juniors. Maybe we can get a junior driver on the podium overall. Josh Brain will be in seventh, right behind though, and Brandon White eighth. Roman Bella will be ninth. Andreas Schuster rounds out that top 10.
And so with that, it sets up for what will be a strong day of running. And here at this circuit, around 11 to 12, it's only 40 minutes that they've got to navigate through, but there is an open setup available to them and no spare car if they get themselves caught in trouble, with a drive-through penalty at 17 and then the additional penalties coming in at 25 by event rule out there. That is the disqualification limit. That is going to be something worth keeping in track as we get ourselves set through qualifying, with the 8 minutes available to them to put a time on the board. The 2 laps that are available, and a very reduced field here today of 16 drivers out there looking to prove what they've got. It is 6 cars out there in GTP, which will mean that there are 10 in GTO to go and work with. And with any series out there, I look at who can set the best times and who can make their qualifying work well. Brendan Lim out there normally piloting about a silk-cut Jaguar livery, getting himself a very nice start to things then with a 126.7.
We'll come round to the first tight section here, to the Curva del Rio. You can see just how much he needs to put effort into there. John Swartz as well, now taking the pole away. And down the first long straight here before he goes to the Curva Coliseum. And my Italian isn't that good, of course, but this is where the car, you see a little bit of camber there, starts to just hug in. Don't want to take too much of the curve, but able to keep it going. And then through the Tramonto, opening up to what I feel is one of the coolest straights out there in European bike racing.
And it's cool because you got this first long straight run, but then you got to get through these flicks, and that right to Cavone is the first. You then got the second where you got to be committed, and then you got to jam on the brakes over at turn 12. Then hits the Curva del Carro as you look to try and get the push off the exit. Use as much circuit as you can. Get back over for the next left, which leads to Curva Misano, the final corner out here on circuit. Tiptoe your way around. Very easy to run wide off the exit if you're not paying attention. And ultimately across the line for a 126.7. Unable to improve here with Gabriel Martinez in control by 0.6 of a second over John Schwartz, who has just spun, and Mickey Friesen done for qualifying as well, so he's not going to find any improvement out there either. So it might just have to land in the hands of GTO, where expectation is going to be needed, as we go to Emilio Dechari here, the Argentine in the number 12 machine, looking to try and get something of this race, but in this qualifying, he's going to also decide to dive over into pits with his second lap. And is it any wonder drivers are looking around at that, Craig, with a 43-degree track temperature?
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe people just don't want to race in the hot temperatures in Europe because it's been a very hot week here in Europe. But no, the track is absolutely El Scorcho out there. That's a throwback to the fast show, but this isn't fast around here for Noah Lundberg. It's going to be quick enough, though, to really get some ties in. It's only P2, but that's going to be really treacherous. If you've never understood how to drive on a hot track, I'm not saying follow Valenteus, but follow my advice. Smooth is fast. Don't go jamming into the brakes, jamming into the throttle, and jamming that steering wheel on full lock. Work the car, work the throttle, work the steering wheel. Treat it like you have the egg under the throttle and an egg under your arms, and you're not trying to hatch that egg like a man tried to do 40 years ago.
No, and that's certainly not going to be ideal, but third position I think he'll take at this point in time. Just happily work around with that first lap. He's someone who's never too shy to say, look, I need a little bit more pace. I need to find a way to go and jump up and do a bit more. But Valente is here, all over the curb there, through 14 and 15 to the final turn here on Misano corner. And can this break the 1:35.9 that Andreas Schuster has done? It can, and it can by 0.08 of a second. Now it's up to the band of others, Audi 90, to say, look, this is my job, Noel Lumberg, to get this one into position. And so I would look at Noel in the number 2 as the driver who can absolutely upset the apple cart here between drivers 1, 2, and 3 out there. Big push through the final corner and over the line. It's a perfect 35.7, 0.2 of a second clear of Aldrius. That is a statement message out there. Eugenio Massa with a 1:41 isn't going to find any chance to improve, and Roman Bello is going to be very close on time because of the fact that he had a drop just moving into the session. So I think this might be very close. 5 seconds left on the clock. It's a long drive over towards the finish line and is going to just about get there on a 1:37.4. So a good chance then to walk through your grid, through the 2 categories as they get themselves set and ready for 40 minutes of racing action. And it will be the number 4 of Gabri Martinez with a 1:25.8, who is going to be on that control with the time 0.4 better than Jack David Spickett, who will be alongside him in second. John Schwartz will be going then from 3rd position with Brendan Lim in 4th and Andres Felipe Diaz in 5th. Your field rounded out in GTP by Mickey Friesen in 6th place.
Well, to the GTOs and Noel Lundberg, as we just saw there in qualifying, taking the pole away from Valenteus, who has his dance with destiny today. Andreas Schuster, the number 3, in 3, and Roman Bello will be in 4th. Shadi Mad will take 5th, and Brandon White into 6th. Eduardo da Silva will take 7th. Yanasi Riera will be 8th. Eugenio Massa, the last of the time qualified. Milo Dicciari didn't have a good time out there. He is in 10th. I think the Argentinians aren't used to 43 Celsius when it's coming up to wintertime for them.
No, they are not. And that is going to make a whole heap of difference as far as this championship will set. And we know that this is going to be one of these seasons where you say, right, where am I going to find that ability to jump? We know that Jacob Reed, who is not here today, is going to be an interesting point. If you were to turn down and say there are 2 drop rounds available, Jacob Reed would currently be ahead by 5 championship points with 7 rounds applied then out with 2 drops. So what will that mean? Well, he'll score 10 points today, which will take him to 176, which means if Gabri wants to lead the championship, he will guarantee himself that because he will score a minimum of 18 points, which he scored at round 2 of the season. So that will give you an understanding of that Gabri, it's a case of he will lead going into the final round of this championship. The question mark is going to be by how much is what I think everyone will be looking for. There is already drivers looking to put themselves across the circuit. Noel Lumberg, a mile over in the band of others' car, having a little bit of a laugh there as he sets himself up almost crashing into Mickey Friesen out there in a GTP, which you don't often get to see. The interesting part, though, will be GTO, Craig, because the Audi 90, if you put the 2 drop rounds together on the calendar right now, Joni Hagner would be on 145 points. He would score his drop round right now of 18, which would put him onto 163 points. So Valenteus has to get to 188 points to win the title, because on countback he would have more wins, which would be currently 6-1, the margin out there. So 16 points is what is needed on the docket, and by my understanding, that is a top 5 finish today for Aldrius, and he's champion.
And with a smaller field today, it's almost just a case of just get to the end. because you might just get that top 5 just by attrition with a driver's having trouble in these hot temperatures. And that's going to be one to keep your eye out for is, does he need to be too aggressive? Well, it's Valenteus who'll drive how he wants to drive. We've known how he's driven for the last 2 years. So if he wants to do it his way, he'll do it his way. As they come on by, there's Brendan Lim flashing the lights. We see you, Brendan. We know you're there right now as they're getting ready to warm these tires. And remember, no tire warmers on the Audis. They will have to warm these tires up. GTPs get a little bit of tire warming, but it's almost like a mother patting you on the shoulder saying, they're there. And that's basically all the heat they're getting with tire warmers.
Yep, that's all they've got to get themselves then up to temperature. And in that regard, how are they going to set and say, okay, I want to go out there. I want to make sure that my tyres hit the operating window so I don't spin out and make my life any harder than it needs to be. I think that in that regard, we're going to be looking at a day's worth of running where I think this is going to spread out, and it's going to spread out quite finely. And with the lack of traffic to go and introspect into the running here, Craig, I think we're going to get a truer form of race.
I'm looking forward to seeing it because the last time they came here with a bigger field, and I do remember a lot of drivers having troubles around this area going down to the Cover of Caro because you can't really when it comes to multi-class, you come to that first kink, that's the last place you can go for an overtake on a GTO. As it tightens up, you're done. You can't go for any more. So I reckon we're going to see more drivers in pure racing attack the Curva del Caro today because they know they've got that ability. They don't have to worry too much when it comes to traffic because they're getting ready, and it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens after 40 minutes.
So, pace car's going to dive in. One car will have to start from the pits. That is Andre Felipe Diaz. So Andres will have a lot to try and get back through with as he will navigate. So, Gabri Martinez, how much of a championship lead do you want? Oh, immediately off the start. There goes the silk cut Jag livery car of Brendan Lim, who overcooks it on the start, catches nobody with him, but drama off the very get-go as they deal on through that ultimate first part of the chicane there. That could have been disaster in a heartbeat. GTP's already through turn 4. GTOs now setting themselves up then as we watch the number 10 of Shadi Ahmad side by side trying to work out of the Curva del Rio. So, that is how they set themselves out after one attempt. Ahmad's now looking to try and get himself into position. They battle for the lead where Valenteus now takes control. There's contact, and Brandon White, oh, that's a sick old drift to try and save that one. Absolutely insane stuff, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Nice save and a very interesting start. Shadi Ahmad was having such a trying to have a good start, not having a good start. Milo Dechari up 5 places already as Brandon White's going. Leaders going side by side as well. And this is what we were talking about heading into this. Can you do some aggressiveness? Here's the overtake early between the two of them. Trying to make the moves. Valenteus gets it stuck. And then in picture holds on to that. And we said we were going to get drivers starting to attack these corners here around the Curva del Caro. They heard me. Milo Dechari is now up 5 places if he can hold this on Brandon White.
He can, and he will, and this will now bring Eduardo da Silva into play in the white and pink out there. The Danger Kitty out there is trying to make charges, but that's a slowdown penalty for the Sanrio machine as Brandon White representing a Hoonigans machine out there, almost like a Ken Block-esque car out there trying to get through. Now this is going to be interesting because Andres Felipe Diaz and a very damaged Brendan Lim are now trying to go on a wing and a prayer through all of these drivers. Lim's going to get his pass through for placement, but they are literally going to have to work really hard through the technical section of 4 and 5 and 6 and get the drive out then of turn 6 over to the quattro at 7.
Yeah, I think Brendan's not going to have too much issues until he comes down to Gavone later on when he comes to that straight, but that front is looking very damaged for Brendan Lim. For Felipe Diaz, he's probably just going to have to wait to see if Brendan makes a mistake out there and Right now, he's got Brandon White and Emilio Dicciari right in front of him. Let's just see what he's got when it comes to power. Because when you've got a damaged GTP, depending on how damaged it is, sometimes it can't go as fast as these guys. As Valenteas continues, well, rinse and repeat. Corvado Caro having to defend again. It's already started, and Brendan Lim did hold on, as Andre Felipe Diaz had some issues in the background.
Yeah, so he's struggling out there to get some rhythm in as Gabri Martinez sets the fastest lap of the race and is out to a 1.2 second margin. There is Emilio Dicciari out there with the very upright seated position, looking to get as much as he can on the getaway here with White just behind. They'll have to, leave some room. Why don't you there for Andres Felipe Diaz to sweep on through at the Variante del Parco. It's such a long and elongated chicane. It's almost like you're taking the giant chicane.
Yeah, I don't really think of it as a chicane. It is, but I almost think of it like calling that massive complex, like the massive complex at Aragon, a bus stop. It isn't, but you do call it that just be how it is, and it opens up a little bit more overtaking capabilities there, a little bit more risk reward as well into that corner, which really does help for some of the drivers. You can see you come around here as well, you come around the Curva del Rio, and that's Riera getting past Eugenio Massa, and Massa's going to try and do the late braking. Golden rule is you can't late brake in an Audi GTO. I wouldn't be surprised if Massa may make that mistake later on if he tries to catch up to Riera, but can't at the moment, and everyone's struggling with this now 42 Celsius track temp.
Well, I turn around to you, Craig, on that mention. Is it a bus stop at Aragon, or is it a bus terminal?
Oh, I would have to call it a bus terminal. I actually once called it akin to the Daytona bus stop. How wrong I was. But both are not liked by drivers. And you can see why a lot of racers now use Aragon Outer. There's no outer here. If this was the equivalent of a Jerez, that Variante del Parco would just be parked on the side of the road, Jake, and just be a straight line, just like they do in the bite. So that's probably the one difference you get here compared to Jerez. They're both similar tracks when it comes to the curves and all that stuff. But you don't have that ability here with Jerez. You do get ability to just chop and change the track as much as you want. As Riera decided to go for a spin around the final corner.
Yeah, has just locked up the rears, trying to get that one turned in, and with that all unloading as the rear looks around and says, hey, look, I'd quite like to be the front of the car. It's never easy out there when you go and deal with a spin like that. So we'll take a little look at this one then. This is how quickly it all befell. Look, backstepping out there, Craig, and there's not much you can do, and lucky to not beach that in the gravel.
Yeah, moment you can see that rear going, that usually akin to this car of taking too much speed into the corner. And that's what happens. You try to slow the car down, and the front wants to go one speed. The rear is going a lot faster. And that unfortunately means that, well, you're just going to have to accept that you are going around. The Dicciari's had to accept that he's lost the P5 right here. And this is what caused it as well. It's going to be a normal overtake, to be fair, but Dicciari not getting the best of runs. In fact, I think Dicciari almost gave it to him. And then Brandon, it almost looked, Jake, that Brandon wasn't prepared for it and slowed down a bit too much.
Yeah, and so for Brandon, it looks like he's got what he wants, and maybe he'll look around at that and say, well, okay, I wasn't expecting such a lunge, but Emilio Dicciari left the room, and I think there was also a case of I'm going to hit the brakes to avoid making contact and any unnecessary contact, because in a race like this, with not very many drivers, Craig, there is an extra emphasis on the iRating and the safety rating.
I think this is the first time you can go into an IMSA Vintage race and go, I'm here for the SR. And I feel absolute, there's a shiver going down my spine just saying that, Jake. You and I know what happens when someone says that, but I think this really is a case of, yeah, let's just pick up some cheeky safety rating points here as we see as well Dicciari and Brandon White, they're going side by side. What a move around the Curva del Rio and at the exit. For Emilio Dicciari, it doesn't matter where you are in terms of skill. To do any move around the outside like that, it's still a world-class overtake, and he cuts off any momentum Brandon White can have there through Quisiera, and he holds on to that position.
Well, Shadi Ahmad's going to pick one up. Eduardo da Silva locked up, trying to get himself into the quattro. Now at the Tramonto here, this double apex right. That's a case of how do I get the drive off the exit, and ultimately it's a pass made by Shadi Ahmad. So Eduardo drops down one more. Chari looking back behind there from that sleek rear wing that is sat there on the Quattro, the GT90, and set yourself into play. There's no real way that pass is getting set up down at the Curva del Caro. So that for the moment stays as it is. And speaking of battles as it is, John Schwartz in the 787B coloured machine is trying to hunt down Jack David Spickett. That gap remaining steadfast at about a second and a half.
Yeah, it's the only real battle at the moment in the GTPs, and Jack's trying to catch up to Gabri Martinez, but in all due fairness, Gabri's just unbeatable for a moment as White tried to go for a move that never really was there at the Variante del Parco, but it's just going to have to wait. Is he going for the send here? No, you're too late sending that. Straight away, what did I say, Jake? You can't outbrake anybody or late brake in a GTO. Brandon's done a good job not to crash into anybody there, but he cost himself 3 places and some very hot tyres.
I mean, he can. That's just the end consequence of it. So he's just slid through the corner, and like he's not taking anyone else. Mickey Friesen, final corner here. He's got the IMSA Vintage colours everywhere, GSRC branding everywhere on the car. The one thing he forgot to do was to apply the the grip patch on, because that is a big smash up on the front that has crumpled out that Nissan.
I thought this was an old IMSA Vintage promotional livery by Mickey Friesen. It isn't. I was going to make some jokes about the old logo, but no, got the right logo on, as is all these other drivers. As they do have a very nice decal in the series for the drivers to use, as some of them are doing it right now. Shadi Ahmad's going to have to now battle Emilio Dechari. One of Dechari lost a bit of time there when he was worried where Brandon White was going to go when he had that lockup and almost went into the side of him. It could have been bowling moments there, but he told his cousin, I'm not ready to go bowling right now. Nico's going to have to wait for another time, and Shadi Ahmad, now he's the one looking to attack Dechari. Give a cat's out to Dechari, though. Didn't qualify, up 5 places early, still trying to look forward to Roman Bello.
Yeah, and with that, it's a case of you just run the gauntlet, 1 place here, 1 place there, and it's going to work. Roman Bello didn't get a lap time classified in for the last 2 laps, but a 1:37.3 on lap 4 is his fastest. Looking at Dechari, 38.3 on that last lap, so that's about a second off in terms of pace. So it's a long chase, and part of that will be the threat of what is behind that you try and carry through, and mid-speed cornering I think is very, very difficult here in this Audi 90 GTO. I don't know about you, Craig.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to hold the momentum nowadays and keep that momentum through the corner. You see Dechari try to hold on too much, and some drivers will probably tiptoe around in these cars now, and others will try to carry all the speed, but you've got to be a little bit more careful. They've made it a little bit more old school, and old school isn't really the new school, or isn't cool, as some kids would say, but you do have to learn that sometimes you just have to be patient nowadays with it. As the leaders, Gabri Martinez, well, he's going to have to try and go around, as this might be where Jack David Spickett actually gains some time here, because look where Jack's going to overtake them. He's going to be overtaking them basically on the start-finish straight, so he's going to be a little bit happy here. Gets held up here going into Misano, but apart from that, he can just get on full by. Gabri's going to lose some time here.
Yeah, there goes 1, there goes 2, but ultimately it's about how you clear through this section, and Jack David Spickett will look around at this. Last place you want to be is side by side at turn 4, and so he will know it's going to be a long old road. Try and get that back in the sleek, I would say, GT colours out there as he now looks to figure it out. So Jack David Spickett, 1 more to clear. He said he was going to gain time. He has absolutely lost another second.
And that final corner there, that's where some drivers in the past would use the excess runoff on the right there to really go for that overtake. Jack's happy enough where he is. He knows that the race will ebb and flow. Even though there's 10 GTOs out there, there's still going to be ebbs and flows through traffic, because they are all pretty much spread out there, as Gabri's just got 1 more to go. There's another replay here for Eduardo da Silva, and he's just going to try and hold on to this. And, well, Eduardo needs to work out. We did not know. And how round goes, I believe that was Felipe Diaz. No, it wasn't Felipe Diaz.
Schwartz.
That's Schwartz. I think that's just a case of him getting a little bit spooked there when it came to the traffic. And you know the golden rule, Jake. Be predictable and hold your line if you're the slower class.
Brandon White's just lost the place into the Curva del Carro. He's had a big wiggle as Lundberg has caught back the gap now onto Aldrius Valenterius. Brandon White, I think, has taken his tyres off here on this one, and he might have applied some ice skates.
Yeah, it's a good thing that iRacing don't have the Paul Ricard paint yet, because that would be a tyre burner running over those paint lines there if it was Paul Ricard, but having to do that as much as he can, and unfortunately not a lot he can do. Mickey Friesen's also retired the car. I think Mickey had a moment out there and just decided to park the car. Yeah, outbraked himself and decided to just call it a day out there. So we're down to 5 GTPs of Lundberg. Now is the time, really. I wonder if Valentez is just playing with him a little bit.
Well, let's look at the lap times to see whether this is a game or whether it is otherwise. That last lap was a 1:36 flat, playing to the best lap a lap prior of a 1:35.7. Noel Lundberg just did his fastest lap and the fastest GTO lap of the race on a 1:35.6. I don't think this is games. I think this is Noel Lundberg being lightning fast, and that band of others, number 2, is looking at the number 1 of Aldrius Valenterius and saying, look, it's normally me who has to try and wrest away a Triple Crown opportunity. I might as well take it as I'll give it a go now.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look back at the stats, and I'll try and dig through them as well, because I know that we have done this track before. Cannot for the life of me remember who actually won at this track. But with the way Lundberg's driving right now, something tells me he did really well the last time we were here. And I want to say that was almost a year and a half ago, as Valenterius again having issues. Gabriel Martinez having issues. Chad David Spickett, he's back. He had told you the traffic would ebb and flow. And look who's right in attack mode.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, he's 0.8 of a second away. And he knows that he's got to just get on it. And Gabri's got the clearance, though, critically into the quattro. And Jack David Spickett's got to wait for the exit of the quattro to go and make something happen. Now the gap goes back out to 1.4 into the Tramonto here. Double apex right. Try and get the drive through the middle and then say, look, now I can plant my foot down to the floor. Now I can bury it. And now I can look around and say, right, leader's battle done. Now assess the damage. What have we got? 1.8 seconds. That's going to be a little tough to pull back on my own. I'm going to need more help next time round. But we know the second time round, the traffic is always easier than the first time.
Yeah, second is always the easier time. Let's look at the last time we were here. May 11th, 2024. It was Noel Lundberg who took the victory from Andreas Salumba and then Aldrius Valenterius. This man wasn't here. It was Emilio Dicciari, was not around at the time as he's battling Shadi and Mad. Shadi and Mad, he wasn't around, actually. This was the race that he wasn't in, as Dicciari having to really run this here and be very defensive. Not entirely sure where you're going to have to look now to go for defense, because Shadi and Mad has really been attacking. And when I say attacking, he's not making overtakes. He's just keeping that pressure on, matching Dicciari. And Dicciari knows that he's just going to stay cool, calm, and collective. But he also knows that one mistake, and that just ramps more pressure up. That's what Shadi and Mad's looking for.
Pressure. It always cranks up the less time you have in a race. But more importantly than that, as far as you go trying to make these moves, we take that lovely look there from the exhaust that spits out here as you go through the gears. Look, bang, there's a lick of flame. As you go through, you look to try and chase, bang, there's a lick of flame as you set yourself up. You're always looking to relieve as much internalized pressure as you can. Get the brake, feel the confidence out there, and know you're not going to be under risk of these moves. The way that confidence shatters, well, it's like that. I'll let you have it.
I don't think he let him have it on purpose, and he was just trying to battle around there, but now he wants to see if he can hold on here. Let's just see what happens when it comes to him in the dirty air right now. Can Dicciari follow through with the dirty air? I do wonder. Jack David Spickett going fastest already on Brendan Lim. Look at it, he is faster. Gachari is really looking at it there from Cavone. What about Caro? Doesn't have the ability to send it in late here for the Audi and just have to yield. And look at him though, he's trying to point that nose right hard into the apex. That's doable, but I do wonder what that's going to do to your tire temperatures, and that's the last thing you want to do is overheat these tires.
No, you don't want to scorch them. These are tyres that slide about pretty much at any moment in time. So last thing you want to do is put any unwanted wear through them as they are leaning towards halfway in this race in about the next 2 minutes. So as far as it goes, Gabri with a 1.5 second margin. John Schwartz a very lonely third. Brendan Lim a very lonely fourth. Andres Felipe Diaz a very lonely fifth out there. Valenteus leading by a second or half a second over Noel Lundberg. Schuster a lonely third. Bello a lonely fourth. Ahmad now in fifth with Emilio Dachari sixth, and Eduardo da Silva trying to hunt and give chase with Brandon White, Eugenio Massa and Ignacio Riera then making up your top 10. There's Jack David Spickett really trying to get some all out there, and this was the quintessential car that set up all the most amazing Nissans out there in the world of Le Mans 24 efforts. But in IMSA circles, this was the car that absolutely decimated the category.
You got to remember, this was the first car that beat Porsche in IMSA. Well, just the first car that beat Porsche, full stop. This was the car that they spent a few years developing, and they made this car basically to be built to upgrade. And this car could run up until, what, 92, 93, when Group C was basically dead on its last legs. This was the car that Nissan tried to use to see what they could do. And I feel there has never been, and I know I'm a fan of the Nissan LMM, the long boy, as some people will call it. The Nissimo was fantastic. I don't think there's ever been another Nissan race car as good as this one.
I only counteract that with the three-wheeler.
You're talking about the Delta Wing, are you?
I am.
Yeah, I will give you that. I will give you that. I'll give Jack David Spickett a little bit of a move there. No, I'll give you that when it comes to the Delta Wing, because that was exactly the whole point of Garage 56 at iRacing at Le Mans, to have some sort of creativity, to have something that changes the foot mark. And yeah, we're talking about the drama with Dom Panos. Well, there's no Dom Panos here, but he would love to see these cars racing around nowadays, as I do wonder if he'd like to see some Audis up there. Remember, GTP, IMSA Hall of Fame car. When, IMSA, are you making this Audi GTO in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I would say, when are you looking around and saying, here's a Hall of Fame driver in the form of Aldris Valenteus? You argue then an IMSA Vintage Hall of Famer in Noel Lundberg. Then as they both scrap it out into the Variante del Parco 1, then the long left into 2. They bully the curb on the inside, bully it again through turn 3. The best racers, the best sim racers in the world just know better than anybody else how to push track limits.
And because you've got all this green AstroTurf that's designed to basically help bike riders when it comes to MotoGP and World Superbikes, for these cars, they're able to just cut over those curves, be a bit aggressive. And I've seen Dachari about last lap having a slowdown, cutting one of the curves too much, and it's the risk reward. But because it's a flat track, because you don't have these anti-cut sausages that, thankfully, we don't need them because they are health hazards and driving hazards, you're able to just be a little bit abusive. And look at the lines that Valenteus is taking compared to Noel Lundberg. These two are at the top of their game, but they do like taking different lines through the track, because look how later Lundberg got to the curb there on the exit apex, coming down to the Curva del Caro.
He got really close, and now he's going to look to try and just pick up an exit, and this is the constant struggle of going out there and running. You got to get this corner here, this corner here, this corner there. You're always setting up for the next part, and they'll be looking around here at the wounded and stricken Brendan Lim, thinking, is this going to break up my race too much more? So now you look on the brakes, and Brendan Lim better on it. That big sweeping line from Valenteus, again, covers his mark.
Covers his mark, and that's all he needs to do, because he just knows you can compromise the first two parts of the Valiente del Parco. However, you need the exit launch, and that's what he's looking for right now. He's accepting that, okay, going into the corners, Noel might be a little bit more aggressive. However, does he carry too much speed going in and then not enough speed out? Or is it just the fact that he's just not doing it? Valenteus really good on these exits. And again, look how the different lines. I know you probably think, really? I can't see it. No, you can just see it's a different timing. If anything, Lundberg's not opening the corners up as much, and I feel he's apexing later than Valenteus in some of these corners.
He definitely looked shallower through the Tramonto. That very much set for the way that it was looking for Noel Lundberg, that he is trying to get a big old line, big wide arc, and oh, he gets a wiggle. That's a huge wiggle from Noel Lundberg. Has to stamp it back down, but he is really pushing with 16 minutes to go. He's trying to say, look, I want this win, and I want this win more than anything you can have, because you've been hogging all these wins, and I want one off you.
Well, first he's got to serve a slowdown, because yes, that was a slowdown from making that one mistake, and he could not help it. Meanwhile, GTP battles just got a little bit interesting as Gabriel Martinez getting held up in some of the traffic, and now Jack David Spickett's going to be in that traffic. I think that was a quick lift there for JDS, and that's going to cost him some time. Now he's getting held up from Shadi and Matt. No, of course, when we say held up, we don't mean on purpose. It's just the way the traffic flows. And he can't get the good exit here because of the new speed differences. He has to just wait. Those are the corners where the GTOs will always be faster on the exit to the GTPs, and that cost Jack a second just with that moment in the traffic.
1 second makes all the world's worth the difference. And when we're talking about a margin, Craig, where we're saying 1 second, 1.3, 1.4, you want that to be 0.3, 0.4. There's a huge difference there. That's the difference between attacking or not.
And this also comes down as well to the smaller field. You've got less GTOs to work with, so it goes back to what you said at the start of the broadcast, pure racing. And I do feel when it comes to pure racing this season, Gabriel Martinez has been the driver that has gone, right, Nissan's changed. Let me have a go at this. I love it. Let me work on this. He was the first driver to come up to a race as Brandon White is battling right now with Eduardo da Silva. Gabriel Martinez, the first man to battle like these guys are battling and say, I want to do this as well, as Brandon White gets around Eduardo da Silva. And Eduardo's not going to be able to get it through the Tramonto. As I was saying, Gabri turned up from week one, Jake, and dominated. It's safe to say only one man's been able to touch him, and it's Jacob Reed.
And Jacob Reed, we know, is a freak when it comes to sim racing. Anything he puts his mind to, he is so quick and he is such a challenger. But now White taking a very shallow second part there through Cavone, as now he works through into the Curva del Carro, gets the drive off the exit, and Danger Kitty is not going to close on down at this point. John Schwartz will be next to try and put the lapping process in, and so I would look at this. There's a missed apex, going to get shuffled off the line here along the main straight. That is going to really change the way they go about things into the opening corner. You can see just how much that just drives through those opening corners where you need the downforce. That's where the GTP excels over the GTO.
Yeah, and I think with the way that that traffic just worked for Eduardo there, I think he'll be repeating what's on the windscreen banner of that car as Brandon White, as we just went away, just had a bit of a slide in the background. They're right back up to one another. I think Eduardo was going to be saying, are you kidding me? And, or however you do pronounce that meme or that pun at the top there, but he's going to go side by side. And yes, he will be kidding him because he will get this overtake there. And another mistake from Brandon White. And I think that was the same corner where he almost went into the back of Emilio Di Ciari earlier in the race. So, now as they go side by side and fighting this, they're going to be doing this for side by side, Jake. I don't think there's room there.
He got the side by side of the Tramonto. He needs runoff for the exit. I don't think he's got enough here now has Brandon White, so he needs to get very, very close in. But it's so difficult to carry the speed when you're hitting the brakes alongside. I think it's a higher downforce overtaking spot down through there than it is with the lower downforce available. With only mechanical grip, you're just holding on to it. It's bobsled rather than when you're sitting back there, rather than say, oh, I can go and, you know, change the ability to attack and defend, and I can wait and be absolutely changing myself on even footing. So I look at Brandon White, I look at Eduardo da Silva. Da Silva had it covered, right place, right time, and now Craig, as they set with 12 minutes to go. I would ask the question to you, are you going to see tears or a great battle between now and the end of this race? Because Brandon White, you know, you can't accuse him of being aggressive. That's a slide through the corner, as we have to go back to your leaders, who are nose to tail again.
Yeah, they're nose to tail again. If only that Silva had that same moment that Brandon White had the lap before. It's just roles reverse, and Lundberg's done really well to catch up here. 4/10 to the better last lap out, and he's just putting that pressure, and it's the ebbs and flows. Traffic's not helped him a lot here. He's going to get the traffic one, probably two more times, but definitely this time by will get some traffic as Da Silva having to just yield. But now comes to different lines, and also now you look at setups as well. Valenteus, a little bit more of a tail happier GTO there as they went into turn one at the Variante del Parco. But you can see Lundberg was just holding it tight, more of a stiffer car, and again you just see it there as Valenteus goes away way wide. He gets away with it though, no slowdown either, and I think Lundberg had to check up a bit too much there, and that cost him all the momentum.
So, will there be a case of Jack David Spickett making his intentions known? Right now, this next right-hander is covered off on the inside then by Aldris Valenteus. He says, no, don't lunge me. Get the drive off the exit, and then we can go and play that game, because that is what we would call posturing out there. He postured to say, look, I'll let one go. I can't let a second go on by, and the control that a driver will have in GTO to say the GTPs can go by at my discretion and not anyone else's is a very, very important skill to have. Closing in again goes Noel Lundberg, now working his way over to the Curva del Carro once again, and on the brakes once more. Again, nowhere near throwing a move down the inside.
And I think Valenteus has got to be prepared here, because look how much speed Lundberg is holding as they go into that first part of the Curva del Carro. He's really catching some of the speed. So Valenteus at some point here is going to have to just turn in earlier. Let's put that pressure on the number one car, because we have seen him crack under pressure this season. All season, through every series he has gone through, Jake, we've said it ourselves. Who can stop Valenteus? You had the best answer to me a few weeks ago. Valenteus can stop Valenteus. All he has to do is crack under pressure, and if Lundberg keeps doing those sort of moves, I think he may get it done.
But here's the flip side of it. Aldrius, though, for what we say of who can stop him, oh, Aldrius can stop Aldrius. How many times does Aldrius stop Aldrius over the course of a season? Once, maybe twice out there. He's not someone who makes many mistakes. You don't get to 9,000 I rating once upon a time without being a driver who is absolutely lit and on it. And yes, he is, 8,300 at the moment, but he can go out there and he can beat anybody on any given day in these classic cars. And Craig, he is driving himself right now. He is about 40 seconds clear of 5th place and 6th place, which to me indicates he's 40 seconds ahead of a title in GTO 49 and 79 in the same season.
No, before this season, no one's even led all 3 championships, and that's any championship in IMSA Vintage. We'll just put that in parentheses. Any championship in IMSA Vintage, no driver has led all 3 series in a season. Valenteus did it for the first week of the season when he decided, I'm just going to get Triple Crown number 2. Well, he's had 2 other Triple Crowns ever since then. And he's going to do something that's been unprecedented. We could be saying that Valenteus is the greatest sim racer people haven't heard about, because he doesn't, again, I like how he says it, he doesn't like to drive these modern day flappy paddles and traction controls and ABS. No, he likes the old school cars. He learned by watching the classics, and now he's driving the classics.
And he will dominate the classics here in racing action, and that's what he's doing right now. 7:17 left on the clock. A big arcing line into the quattro as Jack David Spickett. Here's a driver who doesn't give up. He doesn't know the word quit in his dictionary right now. He'll look over at Gabri Martinez and think, right, I know you're a driver who is a hothead when you get put in a situation where you have to keep battling and battling and battling. You maybe look at Gabri Martinez and say he's had a luxury this season of running at the front, and he hasn't had to worry about that reputation that he's built up as a driver. But Craig, I wonder here in this scenario, if Jack just gets himself to side-by-side, how does he bring out the old Gabri Martinez compared to the new one that's winning?
Oh, I think it would have to be, and I don't think Jack's going to be that sort of driver. I think if they get side by side and they start trading paint, I think that might be when we start to see some aggression. And sometimes aggression on the track can be good, but it's got to be controlled aggression. And by that, I mean Max Verstappen, if you know what I mean, Jay. We're talking that sort of aggression. But if they go side by side, I think that could be very dangerous. And John Swartz might be looking at, hey, I might be able to get a victory here if he sees them going 0.0 on the relatives. That he might be lucky. But first of all, Jack's got to get there. And with 5 minutes and 48 to go, he's not close enough. And Gabri's not making the mistakes.
He's not. And Gabri Martinez, as we take a look from that 007 spy camera, he is never going to turn around and say, look, I think I'm going to be completely mistakeless. And speaking of drivers who have made mistakes, Ignacy Riera, who is down at the back, I think he's parked the car after a spin and towed it back to pit. Going through into turn 12, the car snapped completely the other way. And a very weird incident out there. But Gabri has a gap and will be very happy with the gap that is there and available. And Noel having himself a look to side by side and will be very much pushing for this race lead. Now, can he get this to work on the run through into that net? Sweeping right, it's long, it's laborious after all the rights that follow. Now a left that eases up and says, look, you can reprieve, you can make sure that the other side of the tyres can be happy. But through Curva Misano, Aldrius is just managing and maintaining, just like he had to do in the 49s against Togo Hesada, Topi Cortinelli.
Sorry, Gabri Martinez! Gabri Martinez with a spin, losing the car and grip to overtake some of the GTO drivers, and he's just lost it around the outside. The marbles were all there, and he went into the side, of De Silva.
Dare I say it, Gabri Martinez's race is still alive because of Eduardo De Silva, sorry, who's there on the inside. Look at this, bang! There's the contact, and if it weren't for that brick, that Nokia 3310 of an Audi 90 GTO alongside, that's his race over.
Well, I'm not going to start doing the old ringtone, but you know exactly that. He's going to have to play Snake right now as he wants to go through the field. I want to see what Lundberg's doing, though, because he had a good shot last time they came here, but well, last time they were around at the Curva del Caro, but as you were saying, the car was laboring. He had such a good run around the outside, but it tightens up so much, he could not get there. And I want to see right now, 3.5 to go. Gets a good run here. Valenteus goes to the inside. And again, Lundberg, he has to brake, but he has to respect. Is he trying an over-under here? No, he just can't get it. But look at the line Valenteus just took there, Jake. He's prepared. That's what Lundberg is doing.
I think he's more prepared than Jeremy Irons is out there at this point in time. He knows how prepared he is, Scar or otherwise, out there from these overtake attempts that set themselves up. Roles reversal in GTP. GTO now looks to understand it. Noel Lundberg again searching for that inside, but not necessarily offering anything. And these are two elite wheelers going at it, knowing they're not going to risk their race on a half chance or under. They're going to give themselves the full opportunity, the full extent of I am going to make these moves, to go and allow these moves to happen and prosper through the Curva del Rio, out over towards turn 6. And again, Aldrius pulls a half a second.
Yeah, and I wonder if he just gets caught up here. Now, what this is showing is I wonder if Lumbo's got a little bit different wing setup here, a little bit more down or less downforce, because really able to carry more speed into the braking zone. So maybe that's not just the case there. It might also just be a different brake bias setting, just working out different ways here, because he's worked back up here as they go through Tramonto to the long straight right again. I think he's too far away to look for a move here. But I also wonder if Valenteus wants to play some games right now. If he knows Lumbo's going to keep doing this, he goes to the inside once again, and Noel's going to try and do this around the outside, but he can't do it. There's no road left for him.
I look at this here. I think Aldrius is deliberately driving middle of the road because it stops any lunge to the inside and it stops any attempt to the outside. I think he's just parking the bus like he's Jose Mourinho signing for Real Madrid again.
Well, last I heard, Arsenal won 1-0 up, and Manchester, of course, Arsenal, they always park the bus, but I don't think Valenteus is going to look to park the bus right here. He just wants to make sure he holds on to this victory, and again, Lumberg really more confident there when it comes into braking for these corners. Remember, he's the only man to win around here in a GTO on a broadcast. It's going to be two men to do that right now, but he has a crown to defend if he wants to have the honours of obscure tracks that I dominate, and Valenteus again going wide as Lumberg cuts every bit of the track he can.
Well, he's got to, within the limits that are set and available. Noel Lumberg has to drive perfectly out there. That's what he sets with. We're at 55 seconds and under now left in this race. We are about to say and set that we are on the final lap with Jack David Spickett 2 seconds down the road here from Gabri Martinez, who was always going to lead the championship heading to the final round, but he's not going to take points maxima with Jacob Reed away from this race. And I think that is a huge moment in this championship. He will leave 3 points on the table. Lumberg here right now stares at Aldrius. He's nowhere near close enough on this attempt to go and make this move. So he is just going to have to be patient. He's going to have to find that chance and realise another chance will come along at another point in time. He'll have one more attempt to go and get it sorted. This lap is all about the chase back here to give Aldrius something to think about, a false sense of security here into the curve of Misano, and say, right, now what? Give me everything you have got. Running through, though, into the Curva del Carro. It's not about being the quickest driver at the beginning of a race. It's sometimes not even about being the quickest full stop. It's about taking the opportunity that presents itself. Jack David Spickett, a flawless 40 over to the line. He will take the win here at Misano.
Great little run there, and it's almost like the playoffs. Be hot for the whole regular season. You get to January, well, then you've got to start going. Gabri Martinez gets that P2, and John Swartz will finish with third. He's got to get there first. That just goes to show the dominance of the two cars in front. 30 seconds ahead of everybody else. And even though it's a smaller field today, that is still a gap that those two have really been piling on. Swartz will come around the curve of Misano one last time. He will pick up a very deserved and hard-fought podium there, even though it's been on his own all day. But the leaders of the GTOs, that Jake, he hasn't caught up. I think that might be all it is.
Not yet. There are 2 places still. Curva del Carro, and there is that one final chance you can chuck it, and that's Curva Misano. Lumberg absolutely sends it into a car length then through the Curva del Carro. How good's the drive off the exits? Not amazing there by the likes then of Noel, who absolutely chucks it, but he's not close enough into the Curva Misano. Put it in the history books. 3 titles in 1 season. Aldrius is king of all classics out there with the win here today at Misano, and he will know that Noel Lumberg could not find enough out there to get it sorted, and absolutely the best way to get it done out there. Tandem drifts to run on forward through to celebrate the greatest ever season in iRacing history from that guy, number 1, the gold standard.
You coined him the gold standard, what, last year? And everyone was wondering, why? But this is why. we always said when he dominated IMSA Vintage, he went to the 49s, really started his hand in 49s. Now he's got into the 79s, and my word, he's untouchable there. We need a superhuman to stop this man right now when it comes to vintage racing. I don't think there's anybody. In fact, look, he's drifting a car that some drivers said you can't drift nowadays. He's just got it done. He's really showing his forte out on the track.
I think we know that this is a special human being who is absolutely set. Look at that. He's over 90 degrees as he goes on in. He would have been marked with a 0 out there on a drift through the Tramonto there. And, of course, they weren't a million miles away from here for the first round of the Euro Drift Series out there of Drift Masters. They're actually at Vialunga for that. So, okay, Adriatic to Rome, not that far about. But let's get results then, because the field is sorted. We're all through. We had 2 retirees over the course of that one. Jack David Spickett, though, takes a well-deserved win and robs 3 points from Gabri Martinez on Gabri's spin. In third, it would be John Schwartz ahead of Brendan Lim, with Andres Felipe Diaz 1 lap down, 20 down and out. Mickey Friesen.
I think Mickey was looking for double tops and missed the double there, but in for doubles, it's a triple instead. Valenteus takes the win and championship number 3 for the season. Lumbo did his best, but just could not find a way through. He finishes in second. Schuster will come home in third, and everybody was a lap down. Roman Bello in 4th. Shadi Ahmad will be 5th. Emilio DeChari try to get that P5 back, but what a drive from the back of the field. He takes 6th. Brandon White will be 7th. Eduardo De Silva will be 8th. Eugenio Massa will take 9th, and then Ignacy Riera had a couple moments out there today and parked the car early, some 7 laps down.
Tough for many out there to go and deal with. It is a very, very tough day at the office for many, but I would say that this is a season that I would look at and go, I would love to stand on song as far as it goes, with still, though, 1 championship wrapped up, 1 still to be decided, and it'll be decided in 7 days' time here on the Global SimRacing Channel at one of the great circuits here, the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, Craig.
It's just one of those that you have to drive. You have to go to in the real world, and it just comes up. It is the drivers track. Everyone comes here because if you can learn how to drive fast around Spa, you can drive fast anywhere. This is where you hone your skills, and they're going to be honing their skills to find out who takes the GTP Championship next week.
Yeah, you can catch that as part of a Genesis Extreme production here on the Global SimRacing Channel. So please don't miss it, and don't miss all of this that's coming along as well. We'll be at Silverstone tomorrow for racing action in your Sunday Grand Prix series. The Porsche's Owners Club will be heading to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve here to get themselves into their action. The Skip Barber Race Series will be taking through over to the Red Bull Ring, and while I won't be there, it will be one of the great races out there to keep in mind. It is iRacing's Monaco. The iRacing Grand Prix Tour heads to Long Beach, and that is going to be something you definitely want to mark in the calendar. From the entire team that's brought this show over today at this Marco Simoncelli Misano, it is Craig King, Christian Deploy, Dougie Beard, and myself, Jake Sperry. There is history to be made every single time you look out there. There are drivers who turn around and want to look at it and say, I want to win. That's the first goal. Then they think about, I want to win a championship. But no one ever asks you, how many in a row do you want to win? No one asks you, how many at the same time do you want to win? When you're too tired of winning, when you're too tired of going out there and saying, oh, I'm just going to win 3 races back to back to back, how about winning 3 championships back to back to back? He's so bored, he's making his own history right now. Aldris Valenteus, the gold standard, going multi-platinum.